Welcome, it is Friday the 17th of September 2021. We are live here on YouTube in about 5 minutes. We'll be joined by an expert in the football world, in the English football, not the American football, because we might have a lot of people watching this show from America thinking this is not American football, this is soccer to you, but this is our football, English football, as I will pronounce it. Big week in the football world, but of course, Ronaldo returning, making his second debut last Saturday against Newcastle United. And then, of course, on Tuesday, we didn't do as well against the young boys. We lost 2-1, if you remember that. A disastrous performance. And hopefully, this weekend, we can make it another win against West Ham in the Olympic Stadium in London. I have huge respect for David Moyes. I do like David Moyes and what he's done at West Ham. He's done a very good job. But, of course, I'm United at heart and I want Man United to beat them. Maybe men against boys. But I know West Ham will probably get a goal or two on Sunday. But I'm pretty sure that we can do the job in hand and get past West Ham. So in 4 minutes' time or less, we'll be joined by Jared Johnson. He'll be giving his take on the biggest issues of the week, and including that story I mentioned to you last Monday of that interesting football game in Argentina, which ended after 7 minutes because of the health people coming onto the pitch and removing 4 players off the pitch. So we'll get his take on that and why they did that and how they actually found out that the players did not in fact self-isolate when entering Brazil. So we'll get all that in a few minutes time. We also talk about Ronaldo obviously and the Champions League and everything else which may pop up with our local expert, as we'll say, because we can't get the big time ESPN anchors or the big time Sky Sports or BT Sport anchors, but we've got somebody low key on our show joining us very shortly. It's been a great week here. We had 2 days off basically. On Wednesday we had a pre-recorded interview which went up, as I need to edit because it's somehow uploaded the original video after I edit it, so something went wrong there, so I need to re-edit that on YouTube to get rid of the thing I do not want it to see. On Thursday we took the day off because there's no big news story, obviously. We're back today because of this. We've been waiting to have him on the show, and as the intro was going on I was typing a message, so I'm going to finish typing shortly. I thought I had enough time to type the rest of my message while the intro was on, but nope. I did not have enough time as I thought I would, so it's a bit of a disappointment here, but let's see if we can call him. Why wait for him to call us? And I just open a browser. That's very good, isn't it? Nice one, Edward. Always pressing the wrong buttons. So if the stream does go a bit wonky, that's my fault, because I've opened a browser. And again, hopefully you didn't get to see any disruption to our show there. And there he is. So we'll give him a call. Let's throw him up. This will be about a half an hour show because Jared Johnson's got other equipment going on after this. Now we got him on twice. So, we did have him, and that means he's reconnecting with Jared Johnson here this evening. Jared Johnson, if you can hear me, say something, please. Hello, Zachary, UK Transport. How are you? Nice for you to tune in on this lovely Friday evening. We're talking about football news here with my guest who is now here on the show, Jared Johnson. How are you? Unfortunately, I can't hear you. Unless it's...
That should work.
There we go. That's not me. Good. How are you? Let's try that again.
Yeah, doing great. glad to be back after a while. At least for me, definitely busy schedules getting past the summertime. But I think the positive now is it's always great to be back, looking at your show and all the different guests you have. But to talk some football because the Champions League came back, the end of the international tournaments. I mean, I'm loving just the whole landscape of it all, but excited to just talk for whatever we got here today.
Well, yes, because you're busy up until 45 minutes past the hour. Because you just told me 2 days ago that you've got a radio gig, a radio spot at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. our time. So you're more busy than I am.
Yeah, we do little different things. As far as not working for myself for this opportunity at the very least, it's actually right next door from the room I'm in right
Oh,
now.
that's
But
cool. So not too far
yeah,
to
it's
go.
like a radio station from where I go to college in Syracuse. So working for that and doing some stuff there for 2 hours pretty much
Wow.
after this.
So we will discuss about that in a little bit, but let's get straight into it then. Um, Firstly, I mentioned this to you last week or whenever it was about the game in I think it's Brazil between Argentina and another game and another team to say, and it didn't get it didn't it. The game didn't really go anywhere, and it lasted about 7 minutes before the health officials came onto the pitch and removed 4 people of the pitch because apparently they didn't self isolate when they entered the country on the Friday. But the question is, though, how did they find out that these players didn't self isolate?
I was looking at that and the weird thing is it's almost as if like there were people that were just posting on social media, right, to be funny, that were like, oh, it's just Brazil that was afraid of Argentina, ready to stop the game right as they were playing. But realistically, you're right. It doesn't make sense that they wouldn't have screened them and figured that out like the day of when they were flying. Obviously, whether it was a public or private airport or airplane or charter airplane, they still have to go through all those customs checks and everything like that, regardless, right? So that's the whole confusing thing about the issue. I mean, and it wasn't just Brazil and Argentina. Also, you think about Colombia, Davison Sanchez, and a couple other international players, probably Yeremina as well, came from England. They went to Croatia to basically bypass like an extended quarantine. And I don't know if they're back in England yet, but like a lot of rules around especially travel back into England or even in South America having their own rules as well, as does any country, including the United States as well. So yeah, I can't really explain like what went on. It was really confusing to see because you would think, like you said, that they would have figured out the issue, just sent home Romero, and Lo Celso, who was also there, and there was another player. And you would have thought they would have taken care of that beforehand. Really, they had days to do it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I don't even know if they were even allowed to go to Brazil in the first place because of the restrictions in place in the Premier League. You know, blocking certain players from going overseas, like with Salah. He couldn't go to
Yeah.
Egypt to play for his team, but all of England could though. We could all go away. So it's like again like it was this past summer where the fix was in for England. The fix again is in for England again because all these other teams can't have the full squads, but England can. So that means the fix is in to win the World Cup next year.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't think about that. I didn't notice that at all. That was one of the things. Obviously, I saw Jude Bellingham coming from Germany into the England camp, among other people. Um, so yeah, I guess that's an interesting point to make as well. But if you're looking at it from that perspective, the was it the government or was it the Premier League imposing the restrictions? Pretty much. Do you know?
The government have given out guidelines and of what
Mhm.
countries you can go to because we've got three different things that should be simplified and it is going to be simplified for next month. It should have been for the past few months where you have countries where you can go to and countries you can't go to. At the moment, we have a red, amber, and green list. The green list is where you can go and have a self isolate when you return. You have an amber list where you can go, but you have to self isolate at home when you come back, I believe. Or if you're double vaccinated, you just be able to take a test, I believe. It costs some money. The red list, if you go there, then you have to stay in a government hotel for 10 days at your own expense. So the Premier League and other leagues in the UK have followed the government guidelines. So if, say, like Egypt is in red list, as I think it is, then they have blocked their request to allow Salah to go there to play. Because you have to quarantine on the way back, and 2 weeks, and that won't be very good for Liverpool. So I believe it was the individual clubs which banned the players to go abroad.
Yeah, it's interesting. So that puts the no-ness on the players pretty much.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like one of those things where you think about like a character, right, where they're going against like a law or a rule that's imposed and discussed as wrong by those who enforce it, right? But you might think that maybe it would be fair for them to actually play for their country considering it.
Yeah.
But obviously it's an issue of public health, so
Uh-huh.
that's where it's been confusing for the past year and a half as well. So but yeah, I guess
it's quite funny for England
yeah.
because say like we had to play in a country where it's a red zone, we would have to either change the venue if we can do that, or we will have to forfeit the game because we won't be allowed to go there. But I don't think that will be the case at the moment because, of course, in the 3 games we played, we were able to play all of them. Of course, we might not have had the whole of the England fans behind us when we went to these 2 other overseas places, but the majority of the games were played, with the full squad, which you pretty saw at the Euros. Maybe a few changes, but most of the people you saw were from the Euros squad. And like for people looking
Yeah, so
in
like
from outside, like where you are, you're probably thinking, well, it looks like the fix is in for England because we can have our whole squad in, while these other places can't. And especially in South America, they're very annoyed at our league and other leagues for blocking certain players from coming to their countries to play for their teams.
Yeah, and it's just definitely debatable in some respects too, because you could think of, like, I'll use an example, I guess, for it's not necessarily international, right? But like in the United States, while we have the national government, there's the 50 states that pick and choose their laws as well. So like in some states, you can just fly in and out, fly in and out, fly in and out. So I'm sure in South America, there are some countries that are completely free. Brazil was like that. They had to scale it back. So, I mean, that's definitely where all the complications have rose, especially with the Delta variant. And there's so many other random variants that people keep discussing. So I don't keep up with that, to be honest. But yeah, it just gets so complicated. And like you understand however a government reasons, right? But ultimately, when you have to mix that element with a premiership or just a football league and try to navigate that, it's just extremely difficult to really make sure everyone has a happy result there and really find something like that's a fair equilibrium. That's kind of tough in this situation. So don't really put fault on much of the premiership clubs at all or any of that, because there's really no other choice or option they have. And then I can't really speak for like Lo Celso or the Brazilian players or the Argentinian players as well, because I mean, realistically, they shouldn't have been allowed there in the first place. Secondly, if they really were able to like somehow sneak onto the plane without documents or whatever, yeah, that's probably an issue. But at the same time, there should be people that have jobs to enforce that as well. So it's all just really complicated and muddled, but it definitely is a scene that we should think about positively. You could look at and say that pretty much that it probably won't happen again, assuming that we continue progressing upwards and getting better as far as this whole pandemic goes.
Hopefully.
But it's definitely a lesson to learn from.
Hopefully, yeah, because the Brazilian, I can't remember, it was a coach. I think it was from Argentina or the Brazilian coach said in a press conference that they want I think it's either the FA or the UEFA to step in and to tell these clubs that are stopping players to coming into South America that they can't do that because they're breaking the rules from what they agreed to. But don't forget
Mhm.
that these rules have been thrown out of the rule book for the time being because of, as you said, the pandemic. So
Yeah.
it's a very tough position. I've not heard anything else on that subject since that happened just over a week ago. And I'm sure we have to see what happens in the next international break to see if that continues and if UEFA or FIFA, whoever is the governing body over the international qualifiers for the World Cup, get involved. But before we move on, though, speaking of the World Cup, how is the USA doing? If you know, putting you out on the spot there.
Yeah, it's interesting. You ask USA fans, and a lot of
USA,
them, after seeing the recent
USA.
strings of results,
Yeah,
Edward, they aren't really fans of what they have seen. For me personally, it's mainly comes down to the coach Greg Berhalter. That's where a lot of the criticism is being flown. But obviously, I think at least in Europe, some of you guys are familiar with some of the players because a lot of them are getting those chances, obviously, in the European leagues. And it's not like it's just Christian Pulisic, obviously, right? But you think of Tyler Adams with Leipzig, who's a really, really solid player. McKennie, obviously, with some troubles, but he's in Juventus. A lot of elite standings there, but really the blame is falling on Greg Berhalter now as far as the results they've gotten. They won 1-4-1 against Honduras on September 8th,
wow.
but it was a really scary game because it was the first 45 minutes where Honduras scored and they didn't score any and they were just lethargic, dead. And the main problem why there's criticism, right, is they score those goals in the last 30 minutes. But the subs really aren't added to like make a tactical change, right? Let's say you're playing a 4-5-1. The sub is made for the left midfielder that's tired and it's a Nick Vernac swap. Things like that fans can see that it's observable that he's not really adaptive or intuitive enough to think about how can I shift shape and kind of be aware of how to get around the side that may block my initial game plan and things like that. So that's been scary for people that saw the tie against El Salvador in a friendly and also the tie against Canada, which the U.S. thinking about how elevated their position has been lately, winning the two trophies. They all the fans here believe that they should win against everyone in North America and South America. We are nowhere near good enough to be clear of sides
Yeah,
in South America either. Because the last point I'll touch
yeah,
on
yeah.
is the 1-0 wins that they had in the Gold Cup and the Nations League. If we go to the Gold Cup, quarterfinal 1-0, semifinal 1-0, final 1-0. I was watching those games and I did not care that they won because that those were not convincing wins to get to the final. So much luck involved as there is in any game, right?
Yeah,
But really it was the players bailing out Berhalter, and most of those goals were not from open play. They were set pieces. They were just fluke goals in the end. So I have no faith in Berhalter. Um, I'm sure, as you can see with other coaches that you might see, like in the Premiership, right? You think of Guardiola, but I think a great example in the present day is Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea. How he came into that squad for the first month, toyed with different systems, and then was able to use the players to his advantage and kind of construct the game around different teams. And while you don't expect like a coach of the U.S. men's national team to be like one of those top coaches in the world, right? Because the international jobs are different from the club jobs. You expect him to have that some sort of tactical sense, and that's not being seen from the results. Especially in my personal opinion, but especially after these last friendly results, people are realizing even after two straight trophy wins, it really isn't convincing, and you don't want to waste the World Cup window with this young squad because it's a learning curve. It's basically an opportunity for them to go as far as they can with no pressure, assuming they qualify,
yeah,
unlike 2018.
yeah. Exactly right. As you can say, like in Russia in 2018, where for the first time, I think it's like since the 70s, the USA didn't
Yeah.
qualify, and that's the first time in my lifetime where they weren't a part of the World Cup because when England aren't playing, I will root for the USA. Why not? But it was very odd and very strange without their presence because they had an awful campaign. And quick question for you: was the manager who is the coach now? Was he the manager back in 2018 as well?
No,
Oh, that's
but
good.
it's an interesting. It would be an interesting history to look at because the manager was Bruce Arena. So he had come from different jobs, MLS
Mm.
jobs, and really, in my opinion, MLS is growing, right?
Yeah,
They've done some really great things
almost
lately, but for
24
me, the
teams
bottom
now,
line
isn't there?
is,
I think or 24 almost.
yeah. And but when I look at the MLS, like people are like the quality is getting better, but the bottom line is it's still MLS. And if you're holding these players to have that sort of European trademark and that European standard of play, especially being in these big sides, you don't bring an MLS quality coach to coach these guys. I think that's the bottom line for not just the people around it, but it falls on the U.S. Soccer Federation, the big head honchos that are running this team to make sure they make the right appointments. So Bruce Arena, he was the coach. He got fired after that campaign after they blamed the loss on the turf conditions in Trinidad. That was outrageous. But yeah, now he's actually a coach with the New England Revolution. And that side is actually the best team in the MLS right now. So it's really interesting, right? Like you get some of these guys coming into the national stage, they don't do so well, but they go back to the MLS and dominate. Berhalter was actually the same. He went to a Columbus Crew side that had won the league or the playoff title,
But yeah,
and then he got the national team job, and it's again been poor.
it's
And
very
that's the way the pattern really goes for a lot of these
yeah.
coaches. Like it's just I don't think they have that quality, that extra edge to coach at the highest level. So like people are calling for Berhalter's head, and an interesting point to look at is like when I just said is we need to have that European standard of coaching if we have that European standard of playing. And people are starting to look at American coaches in Europe. I mean, of course, the big name is Jesse Marsch and the Salzburg team for Red Bull under the Red Bull coaching umbrella. But while you may like to have him come back to the U.S., you would think it deters his progress, right, as an American coach in Europe, that his next job will probably be the Leipzig job. That's essentially how it goes, right, with the Red Bull system. Their last three coaches have come from Salzburg. So Americans are looking at that and they're like, we need Jesse Marsch to replace Berhalter after this history of MLS coaches coming in. But at the same time, I think it's great to have that American voice in the club scene and maybe to eventually ascend to even greater heights. Because just to see a tactical prowess come from America and maybe get to a Champions League one day, that would be very big for the growth of the game. Like Pulisic was the one American that won the Champions League, but he was on the bench and things like that. But you get a guy that leads a team, so that's I think that's a different level of progress. So that would be great for sure. But for the national team scene, I really don't know what the answer is. But that's the general trend of how they've been hiring. We don't know if they'll keep Berhalter because it looks like the results have really just been the players kind of digging him out for him, but we don't know what the federation thinks at all.
Yeah, and I think that they'll probably keep him in charge. Either if
Yeah.
he gets to qualify, if he gets the team to qualify to the World Cup, then obviously he will stay, and then probably get fired when you guys get knocked out because it might be inevitable that you will probably get knocked out. I'd be very surprised if you guys do make it all the way. Just like I was very surprised when England made it all the way because everyone thought, oh, we won't last this long, and we got to the final. So again, I could be wrong, but I don't think you guys will. But again, anything's possible. But I think if you guys do get to qualify to the World Cup, I think you will be firing your current manager and you say finding a new manager ASAP. I'm sure because I know that the World Cup they're trying to make it now every 2 years. As well. So before you know it, there's going to be a competition every year in the world. I think it might be a bit too much football going on because when when the World Cup isn't on, we prepare for the Euros. I know you guys have a different tournament between America and South America and Mexico, so it keeps you guys busy. I believe that's every 2 years, isn't it, as well? So if they're making the World Cup every 2 years, so there's going to be a competition at least once every 3 years. It's every 4 years, if that makes sense. So be interesting to see. But moving on, though, to Ronaldo and to the Champions League. Are you happy to see him back in the Premier League? Because we knew he's going to come into the Premier League. Because I've never seen speculation running wild in my life. People say, yeah, speculation comes out every year about Ronaldo moving teams over back to the Premier League. But I never seen it. Believe me, I've never seen any articles ever until this year. So I thought, it looks like he's going to be moving back this year for definitely. So it was meant to get to City, wasn't he? And then within 24 hours of that, United took him back, obviously, because we are still the biggest club in the UK. And, we have to show our naughty neighbours that we are still the loudest. Even though we may not win the Premier League for 8 years, we can still show the people of Manchester that the A team to be is Manchester United.
I think that going back to the Ronaldo transfer, Edward, for me, like you said, it was kind of interesting that the shout was to Man City, right? The shout was Ronaldo only cares about money, right? Which any player does. But the way they were trying to paint that was quite interesting, I would say. But at the same time, looking at the Ronaldo transfer, for me, like you said, it was kind of a surprise. It kind of just came all of a sudden. It was just like, okay, he's leaving Juventus, and then boom, he's coming back to England. Maybe it was expected he'd go somewhere else. Like, obviously, there were some crazy rumors, right? Where, what if Messi, Ronaldo, and Mbappe played at PSG? Those were crazy. So I guess you're 2/3 of the way there with that. But I think it's great for the league to have him there. But like I said, it was so unexpected. It's almost like looking at how, like, basically every window now with all the reporters and insiders, it seems like you already know a transfer before it happens. And this was one of two transfers where I was like, wow, that shocked me. That was a surprise because it came so quickly.
Yeah.
For the other one isn't really related, but Danny Ings to Aston Villa. No one reported that. It just happened. It was announced. I was like, that's refreshing that it wasn't just leaked.
Yeah.
But so that really, I think, added to the whole hype around Ronaldo, because it was just like, oh my God, he's coming. He's going to be here, and he's back. And then he has a debut, and it's fantastic, too. And I think it's just great. Really not just nostalgic, right? But it kind of gives you kind of a solidified mental state if you're a fan, that you're like, all right, we're back. And the Glazers, after being criticized for so long, the ownership group have actually put some money on the table. You look at Varane coming into that back line. I thought that was a fantastic move. Honestly, one of the best moves of the window. For me, at least, behind Tammy Abraham to Roma. I think that was the best value move of the window for a side in the top 5 leagues. But Varane, a close second, I'd say for sure. And Ronaldo, obviously, coming to the side brings that leadership, brings that kind of winning character. I saw a tweet as well that's, I guess, a bit of, I don't know if it's real or not, right? But it's just rolling around the internet and Twitter and stuff like that that says Ronaldo comes into the team the first time, and he told all the players to not eat any of the sweets, right? So for the first day, the bakery and all the cookies and things like that, and, like, I guess you would say scones and whatever, are just gone, right?
Yeah.
And obviously people would make memes about Luke Shaw kind of stuffing his pockets with stuff.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Luke Shaw, what a player as well, regardless, even if he's just a little bit buff too. But amazing transformation in one window, I'd say. You had a team that was starting Daniel James last year with no finishing knack or ability, to now switching that to Ronaldo, and then getting Greenwood back in stride, and then having Rashford in rotation, and having Jay Lings back as well. It's threatening. And it's really threatening for City, because you could see how scared they have been with the fact that they were trying to push so hard for Harry Kane and they didn't pull the trigger.
I know, yeah.
Because realistically, 150 mil would have been abysmal.
Yeah.
Like, that would have been a terrible value. It would have been great for Spurs. I don't know why they didn't do it. But yeah, like Manchester United is scaring teams right now just because of how quick they went through that transition in the window and how they're looking right now, especially with the last few results. Disregard the red card in the Champions League. Just think about 11v11, right? The results they put out. Great job so far.
Yeah, yeah. We should mention as well that City did put a transfer in for Ronaldo. They said it was a closed deal. So and then a lot can happen in 24 hours because I thought, oh great, he's going to City now, fantastic. Not so. Well, I was looking forward to that news, and then within like 24 hours, the rumours came out that actually he's not going to City, he's going to United because of two phone calls. One with, of course, Bruno, who was talking with him on the day of when the news broke he's going to City, and then on the morning of when United announced he's coming back to us with Alex Ferguson, because he's a father figure, as we all know, to Ronaldo. So he must have told him, "Look, come back home," and stuff like that. But it was really interesting though. If you did watch Sosa's interview, this press interview he did on that day, at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, when he was asked about Ronaldo, he was thinking of the right words to use in that particular press conference because he knew it was already a done deal. But he couldn't announce anything until later on in the day. But he knew that he was coming back because he said that about how he knows where we are and we'll be waiting for him if he decides to come back or something like that on the lines of. So he knew exactly. And it took him a few minutes to respond and to use clever words to not put himself in trouble with his bosses or put the club into trouble to try and leak anything out of the possible news which did come out later on. And of course, Man City undelivering with both Ronaldo and both Harry Kane. Couldn't get either of them to come to City. And look at them now. In their first game, they lost, didn't they? And then they somehow got the pace back up and started to win again. But for some reason, I don't know if you've seen this, but recently they've not been getting many supporters to their matches. And I know today Pep did say in the press conference that he's urging more City fans to attend the games because apparently when they played on Wednesday, there was about over 15,000 empty seats inside the Etihad when they played on Wednesday. Of course, they did win 6-3. Don't know how they allowed 3 goals to go in, but because there was some easy ways to stop them from going in, but they let 3 goals in, but over 15,000 empty seats, so and Pep urging people to come out and to support City. But I feel like City are not as strong because they've lost their star power versus Aguero. As soon as he's gone, most of the fans have also disappeared with him. Part-time supporters.
And it's not just Aguero, I'd say, looking at it. Like, first off, with Bruno and Ronaldo, I have to say, it's crazy considering how they didn't mesh with chemistry in Portugal, how he urged him to come back. So good on him getting back in stride with the club side. But going back to Manchester City, I think the bigger problem is not just looking at Aguero leaving, because obviously David Silva left, right, and then you plug that hole. But the biggest issue is that they have their number 1 striker leaving, and then their number 2 striker, they don't even trust to play in their system, so he created a new system with no strikers. That was the false 9. Really, it was like a false. Yeah, it was just, I had no idea. I remember in the Champions League final, it was a 4-3-3, and De Bruyne was playing in the middle, and he would just drop back. So essentially it turned into a 4-4-2 spread almost. And that's what they've played at the beginning of the season. There was a great tactical analysis I saw on City that they've started the games with a 4-4-2, and those 2 guys we saw, Varane and Jack Grealish. And they're midfielders. Whether they play on the outside, whether they play as a winger up top, or whether they play as kind of a center midfielder attacking. And while they will operate in those half spaces, right, and try to play between the lines, build up possession, make that final touch into the box and score and things like that. They want to pass it into the net, basically. but it eliminates those options, and it really kind of asks questions for like, why is Gabriel Jesus there in the first place? How has he gone to this team at this level, played as a substitute, and now there's no faith in him at all to even have a system around him as a goal scorer? That's the biggest problem with Aguero leaving. The fact that they had a striker there who was supposed to learn from him, and he did not take anything at all. Obviously, injury problems plagued the both of them. But then it's not convincing if you can't get another striker across the line. So I really did like the system that Pep played because it's been really adaptive. Because he takes the 4-4-2, and then in possession it turns sometimes into two, like a four in the back line, but obviously with the wing backs up, or it turns into a 3-5-2 out of possession. You have so many people just flanking all of the spaces. So it is really adaptive, but at the same time, when they don't get those results they need because teams can shut down those players, it's because it's too one-dimensional. When you have midfielders there, they're not going to be able to attack aerially in the box. They're not going to be able to run on with a long ball. The only option is to continue passing. And if you're able to kind of high press, stretch men out, and shut down time on the ball, that's what really puts Pep under pressure. And I think that's what Thomas Tuchel has done in Chelsea. When you think about some of those sides that played really well, what did they do? They engage the high press. They spread man to man. It's risky if you get beaten between the lines, but it works because you pressure those players into thinking and making those quick decisions they don't want to make. Maybe they don't have time to look for a better option. I think that's what put Pep on his heels, especially so. The fact that when he is playing with strikers, they're midfielders that can't have that versatile threat. It's just too one-dimensional. And I think that will be their downfall going into the Champions League, and I think that's what's been their downfall when you look at how Pep has always just tried to iron out passing, passing, passing. Lost to Lyon. Passing, passing, passing. Lost to Chelsea in the final. I think it's going to be more of the same, but yeah. The problem isn't Aguero. It's the fact that they couldn't get strikers across the line. They can't trust Jesus. And
What about
I
Sterling?
like the tactics around the midfield system, but it's not going to serve them well if they don't get a striker. That's the bottom
What
line.
about Sterling? People will say that he is the striker now, but if you've noticed as well, we did play for some background noise in Jared's room. We can hear background noise. We can with Sterling and as well with the actual whole squad. Like in their last game, not in the Champions League, in the last Premier League game, they all played as a team. So multiple people scored, like Grealish and Jesus and other people. They all scored and everything like that. While when Aguero was there, it wasn't really like that, was it? You know, you saw that maybe Sterling or Aguero or Jesus scoring, the three people. But now there's multiple people scoring. It's not always the same two or three people since Aguero has left.
Yeah, and that's like a good thing too. At the same time, there's positives for that. But when you look at some of the failures of Chelsea, despite winning the Champions League, was the fact that Timo Werner score at the end. He had like 6 or 7 goals, or like close to like 10, but in single digits. So they had spread out a lot of the scoring. But obviously, you need to have a guy that can carry the load when you're not able to have that diversity in a close game and things like that. You have to have that clutch finishing ability. And the one moment you recall, if you're a City fan, right, is of course Aguero in 2011. What can get better than Balotelli getting his only assist of the season to Aguero for not a game winner, but a season winner on goal differential, right? So that's the kind of clutch gene and finishing ability that you want to see from at least one player, right, as a fail-safe if you can't get the scoring from everyone. So it is a positive at the same time that they're not relying on one player. But we need to see someone that kind of step through as a leader. Of course, with Man U, they have that last year with Rashford and different players, and obviously Bruno is a catalyst, but you're going to realize that when you need him in the clutch, Ronaldo has always been that guy that you call on, and he's the guy that's going to step up. And I think that's, when you look at teams, that's what sets teams apart. For Chelsea, it's going to be Big Rom, Lukaku muscling his way. It's got to be still positive for City, but I still think definitely they're going to need a striker in the January window is what they're going to do.
Yeah. Okay. So quickly, because we haven't got enough time, a lot of time left with you. Um, Arsenal, of course, had a dreadful start this season. They were bottom. Of course, they did win last weekend in a very boring way, 1-0 only, just like USA football team, the national team. Hopefully, this might be a start of a better Arsenal because it'd be the first time ever if they do count losing and they don't find their manager that they did go down to the championship, because that would be the first time in my lifetime, in your lifetime, in many people's lifetimes that they've never seen Arsenal in the championship before. So that would be quite hilarious if that does happen. So I'm really hoping that Arsenal does lose this weekend so they can go back to the bottom of the table. But I'm going to ask for your predictions for some games this weekend. Okay, so you can give me your best shot. There's a game kicking off in about 15 minutes. Newcastle against Leeds. Steve Bruce has said earlier this week that he has no plans to resign. That he's not going to quit under no circumstances. So I mean, the only way Newcastle fans are going to get him out is by having the owner fire him, because every week, doesn't matter if they win or lose, he is trending #Bruce out. So who do you think is going to win tonight, Leeds or Newcastle?
I think that when I look at Newcastle, I've never liked Steve Bruce there, especially the past 2 seasons, because he has some tools. He has John Joe Shelf. He has that deep lying playmaker. He has like the Longstaff brothers and a couple other guys that are really pacey, whether it's in the midfield or on the flanks. And then Almiron has been a really class player. Alan St. Maximum there, Callum Wilson there as well. I think he can do so much more. Really, someone else can do so much more. And the fact that they're just so backwards, whether it's playing a 4-4-2 or any other formation, the fact that they're playing not to lose instead of playing to win is the biggest thing for me that's been troubling the past few seasons. To see them above the relegation zone, I think it's going to be more of the same. So Leeds has been on their heels after some tough results, but I see them getting a victory with some Bielsa ball.
Okay, what score do you think it might be?
I would give it like 2-0, 3-0, to be honest.
Okay.
Leeds always puts on the goals, so I don't see Newcastle getting one past Meslier in the defense, even though Leeds can get stretched out and Leeds can get kind of pushed through on the counter if they're so spread out in possession. I still think that Newcastle's just going to be so deep in their own end that they're not going to be able to counter that.
That's very true. Wolves versus Brentford tomorrow. Just give me your scores now.
Pick.
Just give me your
That's
scores.
Interesting.
Because we are running out of time with you.
Like Wolves versus Brentford.
Yeah.
I watched Brentford versus Arsenal, obviously.
Yes, but I was thinking Arsenal would win that one because it's Arsenal. At the end of the day, and I thought a big club would win, but no, 2-0 the other way, wasn't it?
I've been so down on Arsenal since the season began. Like, not just Arteta. In the Brentford game.
Okay.
So he doesn't have an alternative option. Like I said, with Greg Berhalter and the men's national team, coaches that need to think and be adaptive, and he's just hoping for prayers and the players to do something. And I think that's the biggest problem when I see this Arsenal sides. Besides the lack of quality, it's not the lack of investment. I think it is mainly the coaching and recruitment hires they've had, but also the players that can't get behind the manager. So it's a mix of everyone. But this combination they have now is just even more devastating, in my opinion. I really wouldn't be surprised if they're legitimately in the relegation battle. Because that was a joke last year, right? When they fell down in the bottom half of the top 10, right? And then they got just into the top 10, but I think they were at 11th or 12th. I think it's absolutely a serious concern that they will continue falling. So that push from Brentford has been really strong. Wolves is still adjusting under their new manager. And I like some of the new young guys that they have. So, honestly, I'll just go for a draw, to be honest, because it's tough for me to look at. So, I'll say 1-1
okay, that's good.
At the end of it, because Brentford's promising.
That's good. Let's go for Burnley against Arsenal. Speak of Arsenal, so 80 chance. Do you think they will win against Burnley?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that answer I had before talking about Brentford against Arsenal kind of prefaces my feelings on Arsenal. And Burnley, honestly, They're going to play the low block. Obviously, everyone knows that watching Sean Dyche with this 4-4-2. And Arsenal's going to have the ball, so that's what they like with Arteta playing mock pep football pretty much. So if they're, again, like they said, if they're not going to break down and make those key passes in the box between players and not have those players between the lines, albeit narrow, then how are they going to get chances that are actually concrete plays? They're just going to try to cross the ball and head it out, and you're just going to have Tarkowski and Ben Mee and other guys and 8 men on the defensive line heading the ball out. So, if anything, the New Zealander Chris Wood could get a goal. I'm honestly not confident in it. Obviously, Arsenal could break through, but at the same time, I think Burnley is going to be so strong defensively against an Arsenal side that really isn't good offensively, in my opinion, regardless of having a little bit of extra quality and time on the ball. So I wouldn't be surprised if Burnley could notch a goal, but honestly, this is kind of backwards for me, but I'll go for it, a 0-0 draw.
Okay, okay. I won't mention the Man City and Southampton game because we are pretty sure Man City will easily win that one against Southampton, so we're not going to entertain
Yeah.
that one. Or even Liverpool against Crystal Palace. Easy predicting win for Liverpool, so we can just go past that one. Everton will win against Aston Villa. It's just predictable football. I'd be very surprised if Aston Villa does beat Everton, but I don't think that will happen under Rafael Benitez. We then come down Brighton and Leicester City. Two good teams. So who do you think is going to win that one? Brighton or Leicester City? Both in the top half of the table.
Yeah, that's interesting because I usually am a big fan of Leicester City, right? And I'm also a big fan of Graham Potter's Brighton. But the criticisms I've always had for Brighton is that they don't have a striker with that quality. Neil Maupay had the most, like, basically they have a really high expected goals percentage for all of the analytics junkies, right? But they didn't have the quality finishers up top to get the job done. But when I look at this Leicester City side, the decision making has been very poor, in my opinion, from Brendan Rodgers because I consider myself kind of a fan of Leicester because I kind of like some of the players they have, like Iheanacho and Tielemans. So I really don't like the fact that when I look at this side, Brendan Rodgers is not really making great decisions. I'm a terrible, terrible hater of Ayoze Perez. He's one of the worst guys I've basically ever seen on the side looking at it because he got a red card in his last game and he basically does not have the work rate to be on top six Premier League side, in my opinion. If they get to top six, they've had some injuries as well, but I don't know. I don't like the way that Ayoze and Brendan Rodgers has been using his players lately on the bench. So honestly, I'd give it to Brighton. I'm gonna go 2-1. Leicester's been on the downturn lately.
Interesting pick. And your last pick before we do let you go, because we know it's almost time. Well, it's gone past the time you said to me. So, in a nutshell, West Ham against Man United. They're playing at West Ham. What's your pick?
Really like West Ham.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
he's done a very
I
good
don't
job,
like
hasn't
Man
he?
United as much, regardless of their moves. But I have to pick Man United, right? So 3-1. That's easy. 3-1. They're going to get goals on the board. Regardless, West Ham's has a great midfield with Suchek, who falls on defense, but Man United's going to overpower him 3-1. Good for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. So I'm glad. Yeah, I am. Yeah, I said at the start that David Moyes has done a very good job at West Ham since he was brought back, and I do expect them to get a goal or two against us because it is predictable. We do let a goal in from the opposition, so it won't surprise me if they do score on Sunday. But yeah, let's see if those predictions come true. And before we do let Jared Johnson go. You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram. We've been showing this lower third of yours on our screen throughout this conversation. So you can find him on Twitter and Instagram. Pretty easy. Jared Johnson TV. He doesn't do Facebook. I don't know why that is, but maybe you can ask him.
Yeah, add me on Twitter, and then I'll text you back on I'll comment back on Twitter, I guess, if anyone's wants to ask that for sure.
Yeah, yeah. There we go. Well, yeah, it's been great having you back on the show again, Jared Johnson, live here on YouTube.com. I do hope you get to review this afterwards, where you can see my lovely background right here in Media City, UK, Manchester. I do hope your radio show goes very well. Is there a place where people can tune in at?
Yeah, it's z89online.com from 3 to 5 pretty much every Friday. So whatever that is your time pretty much.
So
I think it's like
8 or 10.
6 hours. Yeah. Yeah. On z89online.com. It's a little link. So yeah.
Thank you for that. And yeah, I should let you go because you've got like 8 or so minutes left to go from here to there. So we'll let you go. Thank you so much, Jared Johnson. And of course, he'll be back on the show again in a few weeks' time to discuss all the latest important news coming out. So yeah, thank you again.
Yeah, awesome, Edward. Thanks for having me on. We'll talk later,
Indeed,
of course, as well.
Indeed. Talk to you later. Bye for now.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that was Jared Johnson live here on the Fowler Show for you. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Just tells you about I do know a little bit about football. You can use the hashtag the Fowler Show on the top right of the screen to use your comments on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me on my social media. My link's right there. Facebook.com/Edward Fowler Show. Twitter.com/_Edward Fowler_, and of course Instagram.com/Edward Fowler Show. Kind of easy, quite simple to find me. Make sure you do like me on all those platforms. Follow me on there as well, and make sure to smash that subscribe button, like the video, share it around to all your football fans, and tell them about our opinions about some of your football teams we mentioned this evening. Leave a comment in the comment section below of your thoughts of my conversation, my questions, Jared Johnson's opinions on certain information he gave us tonight as we were debating different teams there as well, and if you agreed or disagreed with his predictions as well. But from both of us here from the Fowler Show, enjoy the rest of your Friday evening, and until the next show airs, enjoy the rest of your day. Basically, I've got nothing else to say. Cheerio.